Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the fellow panel members. Give them a warm round of applause as well. And yes, we do have enough chairs. That's good. That's great. Well, welcome, everyone. As a short introduction, I'm the general partner of QDNL Participations. We're a quantum dedicated investment fund run out of Amsterdam with a team in London, also a team in the US. We currently have 50 million euros under management, and we're expanding. This year, we actually just made an announcement to expand our fund. And we're opening up in January with a new fund of 60 million euros, and we'll be investing globally in quantum technologies and companies, including in the companies actually that are here on the stage with me together. So I think before we go into the panel and the topic, I guess everyone has seen the big news this week, Elon Musk's endorsement. I mean, a guy that's worth, what is it, a couple $100 billion, and his portfolio companies together have a shared value of approximately, what is it, 1.5 trillion. I think it's good to have this person potentially get involved in the space. Well, before I ask the panel for their reaction on this, let's start with a quick introduction. Let's start with Ingrid from Qblox. Can you give us a 30-second background and boiler on yourself?
Thank you, Ton. It's great to be here. My name is Ingrid Romijn. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO of Qblox. Qblox is making quantum network equipment. Right now, we have products that can provide quantum secured communication, aka next generation QKD, but the same technology can be used to connect other quantum devices like quantum processors, quantum computers. So we have a forward-proof technology.
Thanks so much, Ingrid. And maybe to stick in the Elon Musk theme, there's no link right now towards satellites, right, for you?
There is, of course, the possibility. We use photons as qubits, and they transmit right now in our technology through fiber. They can be transmitted through air and through space.
Right.
So eventually, that could be a possibility. It's not something we're doing now, but it's a possibility.
Thanks so much, Ingrid. And then over to you, Eric. Could you give a short introduction as well?
Sure. So my name is Kievit. I'm CEO at Qblox. We deliver scalable control stacks for quantum computing. We're currently a team of 130 people based in Delft in the Netherlands. And we focus mostly on superconducting spin qubits and optical centers. And we sell our systems to both research institutes as well as SMEs in large industry.
Thanks, Eric. Matthijs.
Matthijs, co-founder CEO of QuantWare. We're a company that makes scaling architectures for superconducting qubits. We market that as fully packaged products, so quantum processors you can basically order online, foundry services, and we'll also market it as packaging services. A team of about 50 people, customers globally, about 4 years old now.
Right. I mean, obviously, the announcement that I didn't want to mention because everyone's been talking about it, but it's also related to the business and industry you're in, right? So how did you perceive the news? And
you mean Google's announcement?
Right.
Yeah, it's funny. I think, the results were published obviously a little bit earlier, and we were very excited to read them. And it's funny to see that then a bit later, all of a sudden there's a lot of pickup.
Right.
I think. It's in the line of expectation that we get further and further with error correction, and that that these impressive results are being shown. I think it's very good for the field, and I think it also shows that, and that is nice for us as a company, that scaling architectures, we're getting to a regime where those are required to scale this up beyond 105 qubits.
We're actually going to dive in a little bit deeper on that point later on, and then over to Adriaan.
Thank you.
The floor is yours.
So I'm Adriaan. I'm one of the founders of Orange Quantum Systems, and we build industrial scale quantum test systems. So we actually build the systems to test the kind of chips that Matthijs, but also the other leaders in the field are making, and we believe that to be one of the key bottlenecks to achieving that industrial scaling. So that's over to you again.
We're definitely going to ask a little bit more about what you think about quantum Moore's law later on in the panel. But before we do that, maybe over to you, Eric. So you recently, of course, secured a large investment round, $26 million, which allowed you to scale up from, what is it, approximately 100 employees to maybe 180, 200. You're shipping to, what is it, over 100 customers and over 4 continents. But of course, it's a space that's evolving rapidly and evolving rapidly. So these control stacks are critical for maintaining coherence and managing complex quantum systems. But I think the question is, how does Qblox technology handle scalability challenges when qubit numbers grow?
Yeah, a very fair question. So actually in our positioning, we took a slightly different approach than going full stack. So we've had a very clear positioning of saying we want to purely focus on the control stack and enable our customers to basically scale their systems. So a big part of the funding that we also acquired is, on the one hand, to basically expand our operations and support customers worldwide,
Right.
but also very much to accelerate the development of the control stack, which means scaling down the control systems, increasing channel density, and making sure that you have a very strong feedback system.
Right, right. And Ingrid, on your side, so I mean, Qblox is I think right now 3 years old, if I'm not mistaken. You've built you have some massive traction with the organization. You've actually shipped products, actually to end users and customers. Port of Rotterdam is one example case, which is, a massive organization. I think it's 3% of GDP of the country.
Actually 8%.
Or 8% GDP. It's like 500,000 employees. It's a good testimony that they're using your equipment and your hardware to integrate and to work towards secure communication. But you want to do more than that, right? So maybe you can help us understand a little bit more about how quantum networks that are foundational for the quantum internet and your position in that particular space in regards to Qblox.
Thanks, yeah, that's a great question. So right now we're building, as we like to call it, the foundation of a quantum network, quantum internet. So we have devices, we actually have two devices. We have a center hub where we perform quantum measurements, and we have qubit emitting end nodes that right now are used to set up a network that can perform QKD. But in the future we can replace those, or we can connect those to quantum processors, quantum computers. So what we are laying down right now, for instance in the Port of Rotterdam, we have a couple of other organizations in the Netherlands. I told about SURF yesterday. We have 3 other member states where we're laying down the networks right now.
Right.
And
in 3 other member states as well. Because
we have 3 other member states besides the Netherlands and European member states that we are laying down the networks right now.
Yeah.
So we're kind of, as we like to see it, building the fundamentals of the future quantum network, quantum internet, where once we have these networks, these center hubs that can connect the end nodes, we can very easily upgrade it to connect quantum processors in the future.
Exactly. Well, we'll have another question for you on that matter as well. But before we do, actually over to Adriaan. I mean, Adriaan, you already mentioned, right? So you're a leader in quantum control systems. In fact, you're the world's first, the first mover in this space. And by the way, congratulations on, I think the first shipment towards IQM, one of the European OEMs, is currently on the way with your first Orange Max system. I hope it's secured and we have a proper insurance for the system because it's quite expensive. But what role does specialization play in your strategy compared to other parties here?
Yeah, so I think when we founded our company, we actually built the first quantum computer in Europe.
Right.
And we were in a position to say, hey, we can make full stack quantum computers. And we looked at the space and then we figured that the better play for us was to say, well, what is the biggest bottleneck that we also think will persist?
Right.
And can we double down on that? And the thing we identified was testing of the qubits as a bottleneck. And I believe that's really instrumental because you alluded earlier to quantum Moore's law. I think that's also a theme we heard yesterday in the talks by IBM and Google. If we as an industry want to realize our ambitions, and that's really, if you take classical equivalence, doubling the qubits every 2 years, well, that means we need to take the lessons from semicon and really specialize and hit the gas pedal.
Right.
And for us, testing is that focal point.
Yeah. And so to that point about that, so I mean, obviously we can I'm not going to go into like all the timing issues because for every component in the industry you could say, well, there's certain timing issues, but in your case, of course, that's also quite apparent, right? So what do you expect to be the tipping point? The first shipment is done. It's a big industry player that have raised, $250 million already. What's going to be the next step for the industry then
Yeah, so what I'm seeing is this problem is so large that everyone was developed to do something in-house and there's nothing available.
Right.
And you're seeing now that this way of thinking, like the industry is moving out of its academic roots and saying, okay, how can we really scale this? And then if you're thinking about the lesson learned, you look at what can I get? And there's nothing available. And it's a bit of a weird thing, right? Because the thing we're offering is reliability and speeding up your operations. And there's nothing as unreliable as being a launching customer from a startup.
Right.
So for us, having that launching customer and being able to show the world we can deliver a 150 plus qubit scale test system, and I want to emphasize it's really the largest thing out there by a long margin.
Right.
And just showing in the field at a paying customer that it works, that for us is the tipping point. And I think that will also affect the industry at large.
Right. Well, thanks for sharing. And so, Matthijs, on QuantWare, I think we already touched upon it, right? And also the latest announcement by Google in this case. But you have something I think which is quite interesting to outline here, which is your VIO architecture. Could you tell us a little bit more about that and what you're planning to do with that?
Sure. Insofar that what we've publicly shared. So, if you as you scale superconducting qubits, you'll at some point run into certain scaling bottlenecks. I think one that's pretty well known, for instance, is that two-dimensional routing at some point runs out of space.
Right.
And so there are these certain things that you need to solve in order to go to, skills that, we with reasonable assumptions think will lead to valuable computations. And so that's what VIO solves. And so it's a physical chip architecture that resides basically on top of the qubit chiplet.
Yep.
That allows us to create, using modules, basically very large quantum processors.
Yeah.
And we are about, we're starting to roll that out, early versions of that in some of our product lines. But we haven't been very public about it.
No, I understand. And so, what do you see about the competition that superconducting also is facing in the market, or do you see that like not as a what's your perspective on that?
Do you mean with regards to
other modalities and
other modalities?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a controversial question you're asking there, Ton. I think. I think it's reasonable a reasonable statement is that there will be certain algorithms that will benefit from certain trade-offs, say good connectivity or having really long coherence times. And there will be certain use cases, certain algorithms that, will require really fast operational speeds.
Yep.
And then of course the question is, where's the most value? Obviously I'm somewhat biased. But I think, I think it's not unreasonable to say that there will be space for multiple, at least when looking at it from in a time dimension, that there will be a period where there is a regime where certain modalities will have advantages over others.
Yeah. Before I go over to Ingrid actually for a follow, or maybe Eric for a follow-up question, are there any questions from the audience? Because we do have, I think, either a system that utilizes it, so there's no questions there. You can ask your questions if you'd like to as well to the group. Then back to Eric on Qblox. So one of the things that you've been doing, that also this new investment round enabled, is also scaling up the organization operation, right? So I think you're now thinking about, or at the point of opening up an office as well as in Boston, right? So what's your approach in planning there?
Yeah, so what we identified is as we deliver and are kind of a key enabler to our customers, it's very important that you also offer local support. So a sizable part of our funding is also to really set up activities here in the US. So within the next few months, we'll have our operations also in the East Coast in Boston,
yep.
Where we primarily initially focus on sales and services, but may expand that activity further. And I think what we very much want to kind of inform the market is we're now getting to a point that not everything has to be built, but you can actually start to buy a lot more, which helps to accelerate kind of the roadmap that companies also have for themselves.
Right. And Ingrid, I think one of the things, or maybe actually one thing which is really interesting to note, and I think I can share this information. I think you're all actually revenue generating companies, right? And I think that's
correct.
That's not something you'd that's not a given in this industry and space as well. But on that point, Ingrid, on your side, how do you combine let's say the more short-term perspectives and the short-term narrative with the longer-term towards the quantum internet build-up? How do you manage and maintain that within a system? Because I guess there might actually be people in the room right now, other researchers or academics thinking about spinning out or starting a company. So it would be great to get your
It
thoughts.
is a very good question. That's actually something that is not easy. I mean, we are generating revenue. We have a product that we sell and that we're putting out there. And of course, then the focus is to getting those products out. But at the same time, we also have the vision to build a quantum network, quantum internet.
Yep.
So the way we do it right now is we have a couple of projects that we do together with universities and research institutions. And those are longer term projects, but we have a dedicated team that is working on those projects that's really looking at the developments, working together with researchers at the universities, for instance, Technical University Delft, where we are spun out from. We have close ties still, but also within European projects where we connect with other players in Austria, Spain, and work together with them towards the future. It is, to be honest, it is a smaller part of the company because the main focus is to create revenue, to grow, and to have our product as robust and reliable as possible. So that is the main focus, but we really want to keep that vision in sight, and all our developments on the current project or the current product are aimed to be upgradable towards this vision. So we always keep that in mind when improving the system that we sell now.
Yeah, and I want to move slowly into more like the funding landscape as well. But maybe one question before we go back to the rest of the group, Ingrid, specifically for you, is like, let's say historically speaking, or since 2021, the investment market has been, let's say, it's been quite down, right? So there's been a lot of discounts in existing portfolios, which means there's less liquidity in the market, which means effectively there's less liquidity for any company, let alone a company in deep tech or in something fundamental as quantum. So whilst we don't expect this to speed up anytime soon, there are some interesting signals, right? IonQ, for example, just acquired Kievit in your space as well. So what do you see there in terms of those developments?
I think what is great to see is that, especially also in the US, there's more and more companies that are seeing that to scale up quantum computing, you will need the interconnects. You will need quantum interconnects, and that gives us the opportunity to put our technology out there and show what we can do. And hopefully then the funding will also follow, because we're a hardware company, so we will need financing to scale. And
right. Yeah.
But what we're seeing is more and more attention also in companies outside of Europe, where traditionally there has been more attention on quantum internet and quantum networks. But now in the US, there's more attention on it as well. And this is great to see. So I'm really happy.
Yeah. And so, on your end, so with OQC, you're right now at the tipping point, I would say, the value inflection point obviously been delivered, new systems, scaling up, next steps, also in the light of time. But what will be, let's say, your main perspective for the market for 2025, and also for Orange Quantum Systems specifically, the next big goal for the company?
Yeah, so I think our company goals are quite straightforward. I think we've now achieved a very clear product market fit. And there's a lot of very low-hanging fruit to keep driving down that cost of the system. And that's important because that, pushes us to better GMs. But more importantly, for the industry, that means sticking to this Moore's Law. We need to really deliver also making the system twice as powerful every couple of years for the same price tag.
Yeah.
So that's on the technical side. But also on the commercial side, having that proof point is really not just a value inflection point for a narrative, but also really for commercial traction. Because it's de-risking the main risk for the big players to move in and accept this.
Right.
And I think that's important because it will actually help the entire industry to move to the next level. Yeah. And that in turn affects the whole fundraising landscape. And there's larger trends that are moving in a very good direction right now compared to, let's say, the last 2 years.
Yeah. Thanks, Adriaan. And Matthijs, on your side, last year actually on this same stage, Don Clark interviewed one of the partners in my fund, Chet Rigetti. And I think he used kind of like a baseball analogy about the state of quantum, and also maybe if I asked that analogy to you, Matthijs, and I know you're avid, you're an outdoorsy person. You like to be in the mountains. So if we use the analogy of mountain hiking, where do you say we stand in the development of the space in 2025? Are we at base camp? Are we just packing our stuff? Are we already? What do you feel? For you and for QuantWare as well.
Your question reminds me of the Gartner hype cycle, where it's like a peak and then there's a big troll.
It's a mountain, it's kind of.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's fairly obvious that we're let's say just before the peak, and then there'll be probably the question is how deep the let's say period of doing the actual work and going beyond the hype will be. I think the key point there is that we're clearly have been entering for a little bit the phase of going from hero devices one time in a lab to industrializing this.
Right.
I think companies at this stage
repeat orders, larger orders, recurring customers.
Not doing one one 50 qubit chip with high specs, but doing 1 million of those chips reliably. And I think that that will just require long, hard work and proper engineering. So I think, to answer your question, I'd say we're we just finished packing up our bags, and but we have a good plan to go to the peak.
To go to the base camp. Well, thanks so much. And then, Eric, on your side, so with Qblox, obviously the expansion is now, there's a global focus for continents. What's the big plan for 2025? Or what do you see upcoming that is going to be your focus for next?
Yeah, so for us, it's very much scaling and preparing for that growth. So also, if you look at the supply chain as a whole, we have to make sure that we can supply in a very short time frame, have dual sourcing, basically take risk away from partners that decide to buy instead of build.
Yeah.
And I think that's across the whole of the industry, we need to start working on that.
Thanks so much. And then Ingrid, final comment on your side. Anything you still want to, anything I left out you want to share with the audience, or just also your plan for the upcoming year as we're rounding up?
I think for us, for the upcoming year, it's important to get as the systems that we've now signed up for in the different member states in Europe, get them out there, show that it works, show that it's reliable, and gear up for the future and start really developing towards the next generation internet.
Thank you so much, Ingrid. With that, we're going to conclude the panel. Give them a warm round of applause. Ingrid, Eric, Matthijs, and Adriaan. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ton.
Thank you.